You won't believe your eyes. A man with no legs and only one arm carries his child on his back. His wife abandoned him 6 months ago. Yes, you heard that correctly. When Jeremiah and his child needed her most, his wife walked out, leaving this disabled man alone to struggle as both mother and father to their newborn.
Ni mtu yani haridhiki, anakuwa na tamaa nyingi. Mara aende arudi usiku, ukimuuliza alikuwa wapi, anakuwa na kelele nyingi, mara wewe uweze kunitunza, uweze kufanyaje. Ikawa changamoto, mwisho wa siku akaniachia mtoto.
How could she turn her back on her family in such situation? And how is this man managing this, yet he also needs support? We take a long journey to meet this man who shares his painful story.
Kwa majina yangu naitwa Jeremiah Anatole.
My name is Jeremiah Anatole, and I am 27 years old. I feel grateful that I still have one parent, my dad, especially after losing my mother a few years ago.
Mama yangu mzazi ameshafariki, lakini yupo babangu.
Today, Jeremiah has no limbs, but what's surprising is that he was born normal, with both legs and hands, living life like anyone else. However, everything changed for him one day, and since then, he has never been the same person.
Nilipata ajali ya gari, ambapo niligongwa na gari.
I remember it was a Friday morning back in 2014, when I was on my way to the market. I was riding my bicycle when suddenly I realized the brakes had failed. As I rode down the slope, trying desperately to control the bike without brakes, an overspeeding truck hit me from behind. I fell and lost consciousness, but fortunately, there were some good Samaritans who quickly came to my aid. They rushed me to the nearest hospital, and I was later transferred to a better equipped hospital. The doctors there were surprised I had survived. They saw that my legs were completely damaged and concluded that they would need to be amputated. At the hospital, Jeremiah underwent a scan, and fortunately, his head had not been damaged and there was no internal bleeding, which could have been fatal. However, his arm and both legs were so severely injured that no treatment could save them. The only option left was amputation.
Wakakuta niko vizuri, ila nimeathirika mkono pamoja na miguu. Daktari alichukua jukumu la kunikata miguu yote.
While I was still unconscious, the doctors determined that amputation was necessary. My condition was so dire that anyone who saw me lying in the hospital bed doubted my survival. But after 3 weeks, I emerged from the coma, only to find myself in the hospital, missing both legs and one arm. Confused and frightened, I asked my dad what had happened. When I inquired about my legs, everyone around me broke down into tears as they explained the tragic events and the difficult decisions that had been made during my unconscious state. The 8-year-old at that time couldn't understand what he was seeing. He wondered how he would be moving around without legs, and despite his young age, he felt as if his life had probably ended right before it truly begun, and lost hope.
Sasa nilivyoona miguu imekatwa, nikawauliza miguu yangu imeenda wapi.
It was a very difficult time for me, coming to terms with the fact that I no longer had legs. Accepting this new reality took a while. The physical pain was intense, especially since doctors had to remove some skin from my buttocks to graft onto the areas where my legs had been amputated. Following the surgery, even basic actions like sitting became excruciating, and I had to deal with the discomfort of bandages constantly. The man responsible for the accident didn't flee the scene. Instead, he stayed and took responsibility for his actions by covering all my medical expenses. Despite this, he was still taken to court. Both of my parents agreed that he should not be imprisoned, but should instead pay compensation. They settled on an amount of 5 million, but my father ended up taking all the money, leaving us with nothing. This added financial strain to our already difficult situation. After 3 long years, he was finally discharged from the hospital, and to him, it felt as if life was just beginning all over again, because everything he had known had completely changed. This included basic aspects of daily life, such as how he moved from one place to another, among other significant adjustments he had to face in this new chapter of his existence.
Lakini mama yangu nakumbuka alitoa pendekezo nisomeshwe mpaka nitakapopata maisha yangu. Lakini baba yangu akawa na sauti.
I was still young when I started school, although it was a bit later than usual for me. My situation became more challenging after my dad left us, taking with him the money that was meant to assist us. My mom, left without a job, struggled to cope with the expenses, making our daily life increasingly difficult. The suffering didn't stop there. Faced with the dire situation of potential starvation and extreme poverty, my mother saw the harsh possibility that we could die from a lack of food and basic needs. Overwhelmed by our circumstances, she, like my father, abandoned us at a time when we needed her support the most. With no information about the whereabouts of their parents, the situation worsened. Despite his disability, he found himself fighting for survival over an extended period. He was too young to work in a conventional sense, so he resorted to begging on the streets and relying on the kindness of good Samaritans to survive.
Mimi nikabaki kuwa ombaomba. Mimi nimekuwa ombaomba. Mtaani, Byaramoro, Mwanza.
I resorted to begging in various cities, starting from Mwanza, Byaramoro, and moving through other towns. After being abandoned, we became homeless and were essentially living as street children. Fortunately, in 2008, I received assistance and was able to return to school. I completed my primary education and then began secondary education. I pursued studies in teaching and managed to obtain a certificate. However, survival continued to be a struggle, and the relentless financial issues eventually forced me to drop out of school. Due to his physical limitations, finding employment has always been challenging for him, even though he possesses the skills and ability to perform almost any job. Fortunately, he met someone who generously gave him a plot of land. He has since been cultivating this land, and now he relies on the harvest from it for his survival.
Mke wangu nilikutana naye kijiji jirani kutoka hapa.
Time passed, and I met a young woman from my neighborhood who worked at a hotel. We struck up a conversation and exchanged contacts. As we continued to talk, we eventually fell in love, and she agreed to move in with me. That's how I met my wife, and we began our life together. However, after we had our first child, our financial situation did not improve, and she began to act out. She was the kind of person who enjoyed a more luxurious life and was unhappy with our modest means. She began to disrespect me, criticizing me for not being able to provide the kind of life she desired, and ultimately, she abandoned us, leaving me alone once again to care for our child. The mother didn't even say goodbye. She simply woke up one day, acted as if she was going out for morning prayers, and never returned. It's been 6 months since she left, and now the husband has to take care of everything for their baby by himself. With no other caretaker available, managing both the provision and care of the baby alone is not an easy task for a man in his situation, especially while juggling his own physical challenges.
I
don't understand why she left us, and the past 6 months have been incredibly difficult. Now I have to manage everything by myself, including farming, washing clothes, cooking, and more. The challenge is finding a job that can support us, especially when you're physically challenged, as people often underestimate what you can do. I would like to make a plea to my wife, wherever she may be, to come back and help me raise our child. This would also give me the freedom to seek out job opportunities. Additionally, I currently lack a proper house and a wheelchair. Having a house would alleviate the stress of rent, and a wheelchair would enable me to move around more freely. Lastly, owning a motorcycle would significantly improve our standard of living. Among his other hopes, he wishes to return to school and continue his education, as he believes that a life without education is akin to a wasted life. He concludes by saying that he has been watching our videos for a long time and believes that sharing his story could have a significant impact.
Nawashukuru sana Afrimax.
I am grateful to Afrimax for visiting me today. For the past 3 years, I have been searching for you across various social media platforms, and your presence here is a great honor. I believe that by sharing my story, my requests and needs will be heard and hopefully answered. We can all come together to support Jeremiah, who is facing a challenging time raising his baby alone and struggling to make ends meet. Ideally, providing him with a house would greatly alleviate his hardships, but he also needs a wheelchair for better mobility. If you're moved by his story and want to help, you can contribute and donate through the website givinglife.com. You'll find the links in the description and pinned in the top comments. Your support can make a significant difference in Jeremiah's life. Jeremiah's story teaches us that no matter what challenges we face, we should continue to fight and maintain faith that life can eventually improve. His resilience and hope amidst adversity serve as a powerful reminder to stay strong and hopeful even in the toughest times. Thank you for watching. I am Simon Greenwood, and this is Afrimax English. Please remember to subscribe.